Ghana's finance minister outlined measures that the government plans to implement to address the country's economic challenges. Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says the measures will be twofold: to control expenditure and to raise domestic revenues. Now, as part of cost-cutting measures, Ghana's servant ministers and heads of state-owned enterprises will add 30% of their salaries to the country's consolidated fund. Now, to discuss these measures further, my guest is Louis Afful. He's Executive Director of the AFCFTA Policy Network Group. Thank you so much, Louis. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Very interesting cost-cutting measures announced by the finance minister yesterday, and of course, top government officials also, taking the lead, as it were, in terms of, bringing down costs. But looking at those 12 items on the list mentioned by the finance minister, how are you unpacking these, and how far-reaching will they be in getting the economy off the ground?
Good morning, and good morning to you viewers, and good morning to yourself for having me. I think that it's a good step in the right direction because if you come to our local we have a local problem that says that you don't stand in black ants and remove the black ants. In other words, we are now going to go back to find out what the causes of where we are. No, we're trying to come out with the pragmatic solutions to solve or salvage this situation. So I think that one of the bulky issues has to do with the load of fiscal expenditure, fiscal load on the whole regime, especially when it has to do with public wages and public officers' wages. It's a load. And so I think it's very important that some of the leakages from that direction with respect to certain traveling expenditure, with respect to the salaries cut off, will go a long way. That is very, very important. The other one also which is important is to make sure that ghost workers list will be expunged from the national salary data, or we say the Accountant General Department. Because if people don't exist, don't work out, and their salaries keep passing through, it's a huge issue that needs also to be expunged. Another critical issue that I think that currently also that we're going to look into is to really, I think that our refined oil that we import, well, I think that though Ghana exports oil, if you look at the presentation, there was a balance where Ghana at least gained a bit margin if you compare the import and export. But I'm looking forward that we'll be able to do more about our refinery. We have a big refinery here. And if we are able to focus more on solving the refinery issues, I sometimes have the feeling as if you have some leaders who are involved or engaged in this private business of importing refineries. So we are not seeing the daylight of the refinery being up to capacity. Because if that is the case, we wouldn't have to struggle with battling this fuel crisis. Because at the end of the day, yes, we know that the Ukrainian and Russian crisis played a lot because oil for the first time since 2014, $800 in Ghana and on the world stage, and that affected. But if we are able to really look at our refinery and work on them, we'll be able to really contain the rising internally up to some time. And so I think these are some of the measures behind that needs to look at. Okay. Another critical thing that the finance ministry is also looking at, which is very, very good, is to really offload about $2 billion to really rescue the depreciation of the cedi, which has depreciated by about 15.3%, which is very against all the other major currencies, which is it's not a good news at all, because we need to really look at how we'll be able to really raise this $2 billion, which is not looking that easy on the international market.
Okay, Louis, if I could just come in here, Louis, if I could just come in here, how is this? Two questions. How are these measures being received by Ghanaians, by the citizens? What is the feeling? Do you get a sense of what is being said, or how they're feeling Second question, we know that the CD has taken a 20% hit since the beginning of the year. Of course, investors' confidence has been hit because of the recent downgrades from some ratings agencies. So how do you imagine the international investors community will receive these cost-cutting measures?
I think if you're asking about the first question about the average Ghanaian, I think what the average Ghanaian want to see is that the prices of the level of rising prices on general goods or the general level of rising prices go down, being it fuel, being it in the area of daily, what do you call it, daily life hooks. And so average Ghanaian, well, they've received it, but they want to see it reflected in the coming days, especially with fuel, because if that is checked, it will affect all the other spirals around it. Secondly, we also, average Ghanaian would like to see that the CD appreciates if this measure immediately, which is going to support in the coming weeks, of this raising this $2 billion to support the CD to really stabilize. Ghanaians want, because a lot of people import. There's a lot of imports. And so if they are not being able to really raise the dollar to really import, then it's going to also continue to escalate prices across board. And so this is what the average Ghanaian is looking at, these two key outlines that the finance ministry has put out. This is what is going to drive our consolace, or have a solace in what has been presented.
Okay. How is this also going? How is this going to trickle down to how the strategy to address the debt load, 80% of GDP as of now? What is the plan?
To be honest with you, I think that has not been tackled yet, because I'm thinking that the finance ministry have to really have an economic management meeting to really look at that, because that is really a frightening situation. Because at the end of the day, all your output servicing goes into debt servicing. And I think that is one of the strongest hits that our economy is facing. There have been no pragmatic measures yet. But I think that with time, I think that the ministry will have to devise another way out and focus internally. Because like you said earlier, the international markets, we don't look good based upon the ratings that we receive from almost 3 of the major credit ratings. So I think currently, yes, we'll be focusing on how to look at internal, lowering our internal interest rates. The Bank of Ghana has raised its prime rates. We are looking at how we can be able to maintain that stability until we continue to expand our productive capacity. And I keep looking at great sector that will give us the hope when we really expand our agri base and lower consumption of food, that we can be able to save up to some point to really cushion us from foreign dependency.